Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be giving my first impressions of Subnautica 2 that just came out today, finally. I've been waiting for this game for a long time. I love the Subnautica games, even Below Zero, which seems to get a lot of hate. While it's definitely a much smaller game and nowhere near as good as the original, I do think Below Zero is a relatively underrated game and I think gets a lot of undue hate. There is some good criticisms to be levied at that game, but for the most part, Below Zero is a pretty solid game. But I was really excited to see their next big title, Subnautica 2, and I was very worried leading up to this launch. I mean, we've all heard about the Krafton and Unknownworlds drama and how the Krafton CEO tried to screw Unknownworlds out of a bonus by using ChatGPT or something like that. Fuck that company. What an absolutely disgusting and useless corporation. But it seems like the main developers and Unknownworlds were able to completely separate from Krafton, and from what I can tell, without much issue. I'm very impressed with what I've played of Subnautica 2 so far. I've only put a few hours into it. This is definitely a first impressions. Nothing I'm saying here is going to actually even really be criticism. At this point, it's basically just observation. But I think the best way I can describe what Subnautica 2 is like is it's Subnautica. It's just another Subnautica, but with some pretty big changes that I think are going to be interesting to see how they kind of unfold. I think the biggest thing is the progression in this game is a lot faster than in Subnautica 1. If you remember in that one, and even Below Zero, but to a lesser extent, it takes a while before you get like the habitat builder. And this one, they give you the habitat builder real quick. It did not take me long to get the Sea Glide equivalent going, but it is balanced out quite nicely because they want you to start building a base almost immediately. And you can see this reinforced with how like the fabricator works and how in the pod, the fabricator actually doesn't allow you to fabricate more advanced materials. You need a full fabricator, as the game says, in order to be able to like make things like the wiring kit or some of the food items. And the only way to get a real fabricator is to build a base immediately. And this is, I think, one of the aspects they've put a lot of work into and have changed quite well. I haven't really been able to really dive into how the base building itself works, but from what I can tell, it's very modular and it's very intuitive. I like how it feels so far, and I'm excited to not only see what other people are able to build within this model, because I think this gives a lot more room for creativity versus the more limited base building in the predecessor game. But I'm also really excited to dive into what I can create as well. And I like how they give you it so quickly and how they encourage and try to push you into base building almost immediately. It's kind of the first thing I noticed is just how fast I got the habitat builder and how fast I started to build a base. And I think I like it. I like how that's paced. I like how they gave you that much earlier, even though I really like in Subnautica 1 how it takes a long time. You're living out of that pod for in-game days, right? Before you're finally starting to actually build up a base, before you finally go to the island to get the multi-purpose room and the habitat builder. It just happens really fast in this one. Another thing I've really been enjoying is how much easier I think it is to gather resources. Now, there's still a lot of resource scavenging in this game. They didn't remove it entirely, but if you remember in the original Subnautica games, in order to be able to get things like copper or silver, you had to go to these like outcrops? I can't think of how to pronounce it, things. And that would give you either a percentage chance to get the resource you're looking for, or titanium, or just something else. And so it was kind of this random element when it came to trying to scavenge for resources. And that I always found was a very unique thing the game did, but holy fuck, am I happy it seems to be gone, at least for the more basic elements in this one. Getting copper is so much less frustratingly tedious in this one. It just immediately started to notice how easy it was to get copper and titanium. But like, it will still take me a while to find quartz and silver and those types of resources. So there is still a lot of scavenging. There's still a lot of that, like looking around in every nook and cranny just to find that one extra resource node. And it's also, there's these bigger resource nodes too, or I guess medium-sized ones that if you hit can give you multiple of that resource. So you'll find these like bigger copper nodes, and if you punch that, you might get like like 3 copper. That's really handy, and I like that a lot. There's also crafting right from storage, which is a fucking godsend, because genuinely crafting in Subnautica could get very frustrating and tedious with just making sure that you have the right items in your inventory, and there's a lot of items, and I'm very bad at being able to manage that. I forget what I need almost immediately. I'll be like, I need 3 copper, 3 titanium, and like 3 silver, and I'll just immediately forget how much of any of those I need. Doesn't seem like it's much of an issue in this one due to being able to craft right from storage. It's very apparent they put a lot of time into putting quality of life changes into this one, and it makes it a much more kind of approachable game, but in doing so, it does remove some of the friction. So it's going to be interesting to see as I get deeper and deeper into this game if I feel like the removal of the friction will benefit or hurt the game. Because genuinely, Subnautica 1 can be pretty, I wouldn't say it's ever a hard survival game, but it requires some effort, right? If you need water, you got to go out and find and catch the bladderfish, which can be sometimes annoying. If you need copper, you got to go and find those outcrops, and that can be sometimes annoying. Where in this one, it's really easy to get water because it's just these like little water slugs that are just on the ground, and it's really easy to get copper for the aforementioned reasons. And so like there is a lot less friction there, but I think it's gonna work out. I'm very optimistic that I think by the end of this game, I will really appreciate a lot of these quality of life changes. Now, one thing in Subnautica is there's always been a storyline. Subnautica 1, there was a storyline. In Subnautica Below Zero, that storyline became a lot more present, and I never gave a shit. I don't really know what the story is in Subnautica 1 except for like your basic plot beats, and Below Zero I could care even less about. So I was a little cautiously optimistic going into Subnautica 2 and how I would feel in that department, and for the most part, I think I'm pleasantly surprised. The dialogue, while not being like outstanding or Oscar worthy, if you will, is, I think, a pretty solid improvement upon Below Zero. It's a little less Marvel. It's not great, like I said. I'm not saying this is going to be like award-winning dialogue, but it is a big improvement. They've introduced some interesting philosophy ideas already that I'm excited to see how they develop with loneliness and the acceptance of death. There's a mystery going on in this world. A lot of people seem to be dying from just the natural environment. It seems to be like a poison world, so I'm excited to uncover that. It's doing actually quite a lot to engage me and make me invested into the story, which is more than I can say for Below Zero and even the original Subnautica. So I'm actually a lot more excited for the story and the plot line that this game's going to take than I was expecting to when I turned on the game. I thought this was going to be I'm just going to have fun in this cool ocean and just kind of ignore the storyline, but so far I'm genuinely invested, which is good because there is a lot of dialogue in this game, and I could see this being a thing that a lot of people dislike. It's, again, a lot better written than you get in Below Zero, but it's kind of on comparable levels. There are data logs everywhere. Everywhere you explore, there'll be kind of a couple data logs that you get some audio transcripts from. And I do think they have been doing a pretty good job at fleshing out the world, and they haven't been so numerous and overbearing that it's been taking me out of the game. It does have a little bit of a less isolationist feeling to it that I think the original Subnautica nailed very well, where you feel extremely alone. That's not necessarily the case as much in this one, but just how much dialogue is going on, I don't feel as alone and isolated as I did in the predecessor, which is fine. It's not the biggest deal. I'm sure there'll be plenty of times where I'm alone, especially once I start going deeper and deeper and deeper, which I don't know how deep you end up going in this game or how deep they are planning for us to go in the full release, but I've got a suspicion you're going to go much deeper than you did in the original game because there are some drop-offs. I haven't explored them yet. I'm too much of a fucking bitch, and I'm not ready to go down into those deep, deep, dark abysses, but I am very excited to start exploring there. I think there's going to be a lot of good horror in this game, which is something the Subnautica franchise has always done shockingly well. For such a colorful and gorgeous world, it does horror remarkably well. There's also a lot more antagonistic fish as well. I'm taking damage all over the place, and none of it's really that impactful damage, so I just kind of tank it and not really giving a shit. But I do think there's too many enemies that do damage, and it's not that it makes the game too difficult. I don't think it actually even changes the difficulty. It's just, it kind of makes scary and hostile fish feel a little less impactful, where there was only a handful of things in the safer areas that could attack you. I feel like there's a few more in this one. Not a big issue, just kind of an observation that I've been attacked in the safer areas a lot more than I feel like I was in the original Subnautica. And I'm worried that might devalue and decrease the tension I feel when I encounter a potentially new hostile species, because it's like, everything's hostile, everything is attacking me, so do I really care that there's this new one? We'll see once I start meeting the Leviathans. The game is also gorgeous. I'm sure you can tell based off of the gameplay footage that it's just truly a beautiful video game. I think they did a really good job at making this feel like a real ocean, but an alien ocean, of course. But it just, the lighting's fantastic. How the all of the fish and how they like school together, the amount of just life in this ocean makes it feel very alive, makes it feel very ocean-like. And this was not something I was worried about. This is something Subnautica got down almost immediately in the original game, and Below Zero continued it, and this game builds upon that even further. It is truly gorgeous, and I love just being in the worlds of Subnautica, and I'm really happy that I got another one. And I think that's kind of a lot of what my first impressions are, is again, it's another Subnautica game, and I couldn't be happier. They did it. They just went out and made another Subnautica game with improvements that I think are going to be much more beneficial towards the game than detrimental. I'm really excited to dive into this more, and stay tuned for my full review that will come out once I feel like I've played through as much as I can of this game. But yeah, that's my first impressions. I definitely think it's already worth the $30. I would recommend picking this up. Obviously, if you just want to wait for the final release, that makes perfect sense as well. But this is so far what I think is going to build to a very solid sequel to one of the best survival games ever, Subnautica. Oh, and I almost completely forgot, this is an early access game, and it runs phenomenally. There was actually almost a point listening through this audio again that I was like, did I completely forget that this is only in early access? Because yes, this is a very early access game. I don't even know how much content is in it, because it's the first released build of the game, and they have indicated that it's going to take a few years for them to finally get it into that finished state. This is what Subnautica has done since the original game, and I think they are masters at the early access model. This game plays great. I've had very little issues. The performance has been very solid for me. I don't think I have any glitches. It feels like a finished game. It just is going to be lacking in some content. Just thought I needed to make that clear. This is very early access. So I think I'm going to leave that there. Like I said, strongly recommend that you check it out. And if you would like, comment, subscribe, share the video, do all that, and stay tuned for my full review of Subnautica, hopefully in about a week or so. And goodbye.